Hello everyone, my name is Benir, and in this tutorial we will be covering the basics of object-oriented programming by building a simple circle class. Now my circle class will have its attributes, and we're also going to talk about access modifiers, constructor overloading, defining getter methods and setter methods. And then we're going to define two methods associated with this class. This is finding the area of the circle and finding the circumference of the circle. And then we are going to instantiate an object which will be of the circle class and then call these methods from this client class here that you can see. So main.java is where we will be instantiating objects of our class. So an object will have attributes, and in this tutorial I will mainly use geometrical objects. And these are things like circles, rectangles, triangles, and in other videos I will try to put three-dimensional objects like cubes and other things and just get creative along the way. So let us get started. So as you can see, I had already created a circle class here, and a circle is just a shape in maths. And of course, a circle will have attributes, and we're going to define these attributes. So first of all, a circle only has two attributes, at least for this tutorial. For purposes of this tutorial, our circle will only take two attributes. So the first one is the radius, and I want it to be of double data type. The second one is the constant pi. I also want to set it to double data type. And so these are the attributes of our circle. This is what we will use to find the area and the circumference. Now, if this was another shape, such as a rectangle, the attributes will be length and width. If we were creating a triangle class, and specifically for right-angled triangles, it will be length, width, and height. If we were creating any other class in general, it will have different attributes. So now this is my circle class. It will take the attribute of radius and the attribute of pi. Now, if I go back to main here, I want to instantiate a circle object. So I say circle C1 equals new circle, assigning the variable. Now, what I have done here is two things. The first one is called object declaration, and the second one is object creation. Now, I could have done this in two lines, and it will mean exactly the same thing. And if I would have done it in two lines, it would have been something like this. So let me just comment this out and say circle C1. And then I say C1 equals new circle. But that does not necessarily mean equals. I'm just assigning C1 to the constructor. Now, in order to create an object of the circle class, we must use this keyword new. Now, circle C1, we are declaring an object. This C1 could have been any other name, could have taken any other name, but we are declaring that it belongs to the data type circle, to the user-defined data type, which is circle, or it belongs to the class circle. So that is what we mean by object declaration. By object creation, we are now assigning this object, sorry, to a constructor. Now, a constructor may or may not take attributes. As you can see here in our circle class, there is no constructor yet. But what Java does, it automatically assigns a default constructor that takes no arguments. And this is the reason as to why you see no errors in the code so far. Now, the reason we define circle constructors or constructors in general is to enable our object to have attributes and assign it to the circle class. So here I will create a constructor, and constructors usually take the same name of the class. So circle. So this is how the code looked when we were creating this object. Java had done it by default, but as you can see, now we have added. Now we can decide to add attributes in this parameter here. Sorry, I meant we can decide to add parameters to this constructor, not attributes. So we can decide to add parameters, but I will leave that for later when we are doing constructor overloading. Now, I want this circle to have a default radius. And of course, pi should also have, should be set to a default value. And I usually set it when I have put my constructor. So let me say radius, let me set a default value of 3.0. Then pi, I would like to set it to a default value of 3.142, for example. So right now, since we had created an object, I can say I would like to print out, let's say, the attributes of the radius and the attributes of pi. You will see the default radius and you will see the default pi value that we have created. So let me just print this out. System.out.println, and then I say c1.radius. So you can see it takes the default value of 3.0 that we set. And if we also decide to print the value of pi, we shall also see the default value, 3.142. So we had set its attributes to some different values. Now, what if we want our constructor to take in arguments? What if we wanted this to take in some arguments? Maybe we don't want the radius of our circle to be 3 point, or we want it to be anything. What do we do? Let's say we want our radius to be 57. So right now you can see there's an error here. And if you try to hover around, you can see add int as first parameter to the constructor circle. So I will come here. And first I will do the exact same thing, but you can see there's a related problem. First of all, we had defined our constructor and we made the attributes to have different values. Now we want the same constructor, but we want it to take an argument. So to remove this issue, you can see there's one related problem. And when you click create construct, so you can see because this constructor and this constructor are the same, the compiler does not know what to do in this case. So to remove this anomaly, we insert a parameter. Let's say we want the user to input a specific radius of the circle. So we say double radius. And now I will use a keyword called this, which I will explain in a bit. So first of all, this is our parameter. Now we are assigning this parameter here to the value of the attribute. Now this keyword refers to the instance of the class, or in other words, the object which we created. So this keyword refers to C1, this circle that we created, C1, the name of the object. So the object will have a specific attribute, and different objects may have different attributes. So let's say our circles, of course, may be different. So if I create circle C2, it may have a different radius from this circle. And this keyword is used to refer to the objects in general. So the user here will enter a value. This value will be assigned to be the attribute of that specific object with the help of this keyword. So we are done with helping the user to input the radius. Now, I would like to talk about getters and setters by explaining access modifiers. An access modifier is used to limit access of attributes from other classes. So let's say we don't want the radius to be seen from, let's say, the main class. We don't want the value of pi to be seen from the main class. What do? We use things called access modifiers. So we have three types of access modifiers. We have public, private, and protected. However, I'll talk about public and private for now. So I'll start with the public. So the public access modifier allows us to see the attributes from other classes. So if I set this one, my attributes to be public, it means I am allowing them to be seen from other classes. So you can see if I run my code, you can still see my attributes, my default values of the radius and of pi. Now, if I don't want this to be seen, I use the keyword private, and as soon as that happens, you can see another issue, one related problem. You can see here, if I try to run, radius has private access in circle, pi has private access in circle. This means we cannot access these attributes, radius and pi, sorry. We cannot access the attributes from this class. We can only access them from the circle class. So to remove or to alleviate this error, we use what we call getter methods. Now, for getter methods, we want to return the value of the radius. So we first define an attribute. We first define a method, sorry. So the method we want to define is called getRadius, and it will return a type, the data type of double, since our radius is double data type. So I say double getRadius, and I say return radius. I also want to retrieve the pi attribute, and it will, I set it to return pi. So now if I call these methods from the main class, let's call them get pi, and then now I set this one to get radius. You can see our default values are back. Now we have used methods since the attributes have been set to private. So that is just the simple concept of getters. Now we want to talk about setters. Now setters will usually be of the return type void, because they allow the user to modify attributes of a class. So let's say we initially set the radius of circle 1 to, let's say, 7. Now we want to change it, and maybe we have enlarged it to a radius of 14. What we will do is now we will implement the use of a setter method, and we are going to define it like this: void set radius, and then you will input to the value that you want to set the radius to. So that will be double radius 1. I could have decided to name my variable anything, but to avoid confusion, I just say double radius 1. And then I say this radius equals radius 1. But since we are done with the getter methods, the setter methods, and constructor overloading, now it's time to do something with our circle. Of course, when we have the radius and we have the pi constant, we can either find the circumference or find the area of the circle. So I will start with the area. So for the area of the circle, we want it to be of double data type. So double find area. We want it to take in some values. So we want it to return pi times the radius times the radius. This will return the area of the circle. We also want to find the circumference. Want it to return 2 times pi times the radius. And that is our basic find area method and find circumference method. So I want now to go to the main class, create a new circle, give it a radius using the concept of constructor overloading. we're going to use the get radius methods, the get pi method. We're going to set the radius, modify the radius, and find the area again and the circumference. So I will create a new object. So circle C2, want it to take a radius of, let's say, 7. So now C2, get radius, C2, find circumference. I'm just calling the method now. Find the area. And then we say set the radius of C2 to something like 14. And then we say find the area, find the circumference of the circle. So I want to print out all the values of the methods, and we see the results. So you can see there is an error in our code. So when you go back to the circle class, you can see where we have defined pi, it is not at the constructor which we have used to modify the circle. So to avoid this, we can also set pi to 3.142 here. And then when we run our code, the methods will actually work. The second way is also by going to the constructor that takes an argument and set pi to 3.142 from there. So we will not need this one, and we will have actually solved our problem. So feel free to correct me if there's a concept I have not explained well, or any question that you may have, feel free to ask in the comments. Take care.